Hello, you're tuned in to Word Power, the podcast where we learn new English words every day.
Welcome back, everyone. In our last episode, we talked a lot about setting goals, right? And the big question that came up was how do we actually decide how to achieve those goals? Well, today we're diving straight into that, focusing on the incredible power of thinking and decision making.
Exactly, Zia. It's one thing to say, I want to run a marathon or I want to start a business, but the real magic, or maybe the real challenge, is figuring out the steps. And that's where our cognitive skills, our brain power, truly comes into play. It's not just about willpower, is it?
Not at all. I mean, think about it. Every single day, from what to have for breakfast to a major career pivot, we're bombarded with choices. And how we approach those choices, how we think through them, defines our path. We're talking about words like analyze, evaluate, consider, determine, interpret, reflect, and conclude. These aren't just fancy words, they're the building blocks of smart decisions.
Oh, absolutely. Let's start with analyze. You hear that word all the time, especially in business or academic settings. But what does it really mean in our daily lives? For me, analyze is like taking a complex problem and breaking it down into smaller, more manageable pieces. Like a puzzle, you know?
That's a great analogy. It's about looking at something really closely, examining its different parts, understanding the relationships between those parts. If you're trying to figure out why a project isn't going well, you don't just throw your hands up. You analyze. What's the budget like? Who's on the team? What were the initial parameters? What obstacles have we hit? You break it down to its core components.
Right, and once you've analyzed, you move to evaluate. This is where you actually weigh the pros and cons of those pieces you've just broken down. You're assessing the value, the quality, the importance of each component. Is this budget realistic? Is this team member's role optimized? It's not just seeing the parts, it's judging them.
Precisely. And that's where consider comes in too. It's slightly softer than evaluate, perhaps. You're giving careful thought to something, taking it into account. You've analyzed the facts, evaluated their weight, and now you're considering all the implications before making a move. It's a very deliberate step, avoiding snap judgments.
Yeah, consider often feels like you're putting yourself in different shoes, looking at the situation from various angles. What if I do this? What if I don't? What are the potential consequences for me, for others? It's about empathy and foresight, isn't it?
Absolutely. And after all that, you get to determine. This is where you establish something exactly. Often, as a result of calculation or investigation, you're settling a question, reaching a firm conclusion based on your analysis, evaluation, and consideration. This is where the decision actually starts to form.
It's the pivot point. You've gathered all the data, thought through all the angles, and now you're determining the best course of action. It feels decisive. And then there's interpret, which I think is crucial, because two people can look at the exact same data and interpret it completely differently.
That's a fantastic point, Gina. Interpret is about explaining the meaning of something, drawing conclusions from information or events, your perspective, your past experiences, your biases. Conscious or unconscious all play a huge role in how you interpret data. This is why critical thinking is so important. It helps us be aware of our own interpretive lens.
And it makes you wonder how often misunderstandings happen just because of different interpretations, right? Like someone says it's cold, and one person interprets that as needing a light jacket, while another thinks they need a full winter coat. Context and personal experience really matter.
Totally. And leading into reflect, this is something I try to do regularly. It's about thinking deeply or carefully about something. After a big decision, after a challenging experience, you reflect. What went well? What could I have done differently? What did I learn? It's a feedback loop for your brain, making your future decisions smarter.
Reflection is so underrated. It's how we grow. And then, finally, conclude. This is drawing everything together, summing it all up. After all the analyzing, evaluating, considering, determining, interpreting, and reflecting, you arrive at a conclusion. It's the end of that specific thought process, the final judgment or decision.
So, when we talk about deciding how to achieve goals, it's not just a simple choice, it's applying all these cognitive verbs. You analyze your current situation, you evaluate potential strategies, you consider the risks and rewards, you determine the best path, you interpret feedback, you reflect on progress, and then you conclude on next steps. It's a continuous cycle.
It really is. And you know what else is crucial for all of this? For analyzing effectively, for interpreting clearly, for communicating your conclusions? It's having a strong vocabulary. Because if you don't have the right words, how do you even frame your thoughts?
You've hit on such an important point, Gina. Language and thought are so intertwined. Expanding your vocabulary isn't just about sounding smarter, it's about being able to think with greater precision and nuance. How can you effectively evaluate a subtle difference in options if you don't have the words to describe that nuance?
Exactly. It's like having more tools in your mental toolbox. So let's talk about learning vocabulary, because it's something a lot of people struggle with. First off, pronunciation. You can know a word's meaning, but if you can't say it, you'll hesitate to use it, right?
Definitely. My tip for pronunciation is to always listen. Don't just read a new word. Use online dictionaries that have audio pronunciations. Repeat it out loud. Practice it in sentences. Break it down phonetically. Sometimes the way a word looks is completely different from how it sounds. Take segue, for example. Looks like segue, but it's segue.
Oh, that's a classic one. Or chagrin. I used to pronounce it chagrin for the longest time until someone corrected me. It's chagrin. It's about being brave enough to try and not being afraid to get it wrong sometimes. And for explanation, I find context is king. Don't just memorize definitions.
Couldn't agree more. When you encounter a new word, try to understand it in the sentence or paragraph it was used. What's the surrounding context? Then look up its definition, but also look for synonyms and antonyms. That really helps you grasp its full spectrum of meaning. And etymology, where the word comes from, can be fascinating and super helpful for understanding its core.
Yes, like benevolent ben meaning good immediately gives you a clue. Another thing I do is try to use the word immediately. If I just learned ephemeral, I'll try to describe my morning coffee as an ephemeral pleasure to someone. It helps cement it in my memory.
That's a fantastic active learning strategy. Passive reading isn't enough for vocabulary. You have to engage with the words. And then there's spelling. Oh, spelling. English is notoriously tricky with its spelling, isn't it? Receive versus believe I before E except after C. But then there are exceptions to the exceptions.
Tell me about it. My brain just goes fuzzy sometimes. For spelling, I've found a few things really help. One is visual memory. I'll write the word out several times, just looking at it. Another is breaking down longer words, like unnecessary, unnecessary, or separate. That in the middle often trips people up. Think a rat in separate.
Oh, mnemonic devices are brilliant. I use them all the time. For rhythm, I always think rhythm helps your two hips move. It's silly, but it works. And just consistent exposure, reading widely, paying attention to words as you read them, not just glossing over them. The more you see a word, the more familiar its spelling becomes.
Absolutely. Flashcards are also an oldie but a goodie. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. If you misspell a word, acknowledge it, correct it, and try to remember why you misspelled it. Was it a silent letter, a double consonant? That self-correction is a powerful learning tool.
It links back to our earlier discussion about reflection, doesn't it? Reflect on your mistakes, whether it's a poor decision or a misspelled word, and you learn and improve. So ultimately, strengthening your vocabulary isn't just about improving your communication, it's about sharpening your very ability to think.
It truly is. The more words you know, the more precisely you can analyze a situation, the more accurately you can evaluate options, the more clearly you can interpret information, and the more nuanced conclusions you can draw. It's all interconnected.
So whether you're working on a major life decision, trying to achieve a complex goal, or simply trying to articulate your thoughts more clearly, remember these cognitive verbs. Analyze, evaluate, consider, determine, interpret, reflect, and conclude. And actively work on your vocabulary, knowing that every new word is a new tool for your mind.
Precisely. So next time you're faced with a big choice or even just a tricky word, take a moment to engage those powerful cognitive skills. It makes all the difference. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Thinking, Deciding, and Growing Together.
It was a pleasure, Gina, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We hope this gave you some valuable insights and actionable steps to empower your thinking. We'll catch you next time.
Hello, you're tuned in to Word Power, the podcast where we learn new English words every day.